Hello, hello everyone. Happy spring. It's a beautiful day here in the yurt. And today I'm super excited to talk to Sarah Stray of Boxless Coaching. Sarah
Yay.
is, hello.
Yay!
Yeah. Sarah is a intuitive mentor, a coach, an Akashic reading guide.
That works.
I'm like, wait, why am I missing a word here? An Akashic record healer. That's it. So, we're going to be having a really fun chat today because we're going to talk a
Mhm.
little bit to Sarah about how she got here and what exactly is the Akashic record, kind of digging into some spiritual terminology. For anyone who's new, we'll try to make it really approachable for you all. And then she's going to do like a mini reading, tapping into my Akashic record. And
Mhm.
so that's going to be fun because I
Yeah, and we have no idea what's going to happen, which is part of the
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, we're just flying by the seat of our pants over here. So,
Exactly.
hi Sarah, how are you?
Hi. I'm good today. I'm fresh off eating eggs, which is my morning ritual, and feeling happy in the sunshine. I've got
Mhm.
my cup of tea, so I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're also a cut flower gardener.
I always say cut flower sidepreneur, right? Because
Yeah.
I have always been a gardener. And this will be my fourth summer cut flower gardening. And it's totally different, right? As you know, for it being also something that you do, the planting of a garden to cut is totally different than permanent gardens.
Yeah. I just planted, I'm only on my second year of cut flowers, but I planted all my seeds yesterday pretty
Oh
much.
my gosh, I was out all day t yesterday too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have like pretty epic sunburn today.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it was so good. It feels so good getting the seeds in. Once the weather's nice
I
and you kind of
know.
know the last frost has passed, I always feel this
Hmm.
like sense of urgency. I'm like, gotta plant my seeds.
I do, I do too. And the rain, I'm feeling behind. But then, like, cut flower gardening or any gardening is a great, like, way to ground. And it's a beautiful, like, exercise and, like, real time letting go, like, every day, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't control the weather. And so, yes, thank you for bringing in that little nugget that we have in common. And it is so fun. And I can't wait for the blooms to start.
Oh my gosh, I know we'll have to compare notes all along our cut flower paths.
Hmm.
I did a lot of new ones this year, so I'm super excited to see how those go. But
I
um,
am too. And the new flowers bring me so much joy. And maybe we can turn this into some kind of metaphor for what we're about to talk about. But like I get to plan my garden for fun and decide what I want to cut just because it brings me joy and I want to try something new, right? So I'm not putting any pressure on. That's why I call it a sidepreneur. Like I make some money off of it, sure, but
yeah,
I'm not counting on that. It's just a hobby. And so, yeah, new flowers.
yeah, totally. Same, and more same. So, okay, I know we're gonna have so much to talk about here, and so I really want to
Hmm.
get started by sharing about. I was reading your blog earlier, and I saw a little blip about kind of burnout from your sort of more corporate job and
Yeah.
getting into your current business as an Akashic record
Yep.
reader, intuitive healer, coach. So tell us a little bit about that kind of.
Yeah. So I was in the not-for-profit sphere for, oh, I don't know, 22, 23 years or something like that. Which is interesting because the pressure to be always be making an impact for others, I think was part of that chord of what that burnout was. And it operated like a corporation, as any good not-for-profit does operate like a business. But like COVID hit hard to our not-for-profit, and there was a lot of pivoting really fast. A lot of it beautifully landed on my shoulders, which I had such success in that I'm proud of. And it just stopped feeling right, is what it boils down to. You could call it career stagnation, with the lens of new spirituality. It was absolutely a crisis of purpose. But I just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I tried really hard, and I think in retrospect, the universe was giving me some nudges
Mm,
in releasing me from it because I have such loyal tendencies, right? So there's the unconscious beliefs that all work in our background that maybe don't serve us. Yeah, so I left and then I just rested,
mm,
was the permission I gave myself initially. Just like take, it was the spring when I left, and with great graces, and I still love my colleagues, and I had the best boss. So like sometimes you t have that like, what do you do conversation. I don't know how you feel about that, and you're like, well, I used to do this, and I resigned, and people are like, oh, like what was wrong with it all? And I'm like, nothing, except that
mm.
it wasn't in alignment anymore, right?
Yeah. And
Go ahead. You,
it's so beautiful though when you can like step away from things prior to it being like the big
mm-hmm.
bad exit, because I think a lot of us tend to ignore some of those more subtle nudges pushing us away from like circumstances or
Yes.
relationships even, and then it does have to
Mm-hmm.
come to this like boiling point or explosive ending, because it's like that reminds me of the tower card. It's like in
Oh, mm-hmm.
where like you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
mitigate the damage of upheaval if you're tapped into your intuition and you start to see the shifts coming. But if you're not, then it just continues to get worse and worse and worse until you're forced to see it.
Absolutely, right? And that is your kind of your body and your nervous system breaking down and talking to you like, and sometimes it needs to get really loud in order for you to take a step on a different path, right? But it was really important to me that I leave with grace and that I leave because I loved it so much that I left all my colleagues and all my work in really in a really good and beautiful place, right? And so what that did is it's like I freed myself from it in that way. Um,
Yeah. Uh-oh.
and then I would say that how did Sarah get to be this Akashic record healer? Did we freeze for a second there?
Yeah, you did, but
Oh
you're all good now.
no. All right. Okay. Um, so rested, and then of course, once you're kind of like on this other side of this huge life transition, like everything in retrospect, you go back and you're like, okay, like how much was really leading up to this that I just didn't know was a sign back at the time, right?
Mhm.
So I have been a receiver of energy work for 20 years. And my husband and I always have this running joke. We will have been together for 25 years this September that when we met, like one of our first conversations, he's like, I'm a little new agey. And I was like, oh, good. Me too. And now we joke that like the role is like complete, you know, in the intuitive world, complete. Yeah. So some of the,
You are freezing like a little bit. What might be helpful, I don't know if it'll be helpful for you to turn your camera off, maybe. That might help the.
oh,
It's okay if we don't have the
why
camera.
don't we try it for a minute or two?
Yeah.
We'll see. Um,
Here, I'll move closer this way too.
yeah.
Hopefully it's not mine. We'll see. I had no
So
problem.
I will say, Katie, this sometimes happens is, I can tea for technology till the cows come home and plan everything, but because the Akashic field is such big energy, sometimes stuff just happens. And
Yeah.
I kind of feel like sometimes the technology is just responding to like a way higher frequency vibration and it gets wonky. Um,
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. And don't worry about it. It's technological glitches happen. If you want, I just am moving closer to I'm like moving closer to the wall of my yurt where the modem is in the house.
Awesome. Awesome. And
So if
I don't need
you
to move. I'm hardwired in.
okay.
What was I talking about? Everything in retrospect, right?
Yeah,
You
you were
can,
saying sort of like you and
yeah.
your husband were saying that you were a little new agey when you first met and that the roles
Oh my
have
gosh. We've always been a little new agey together. And so while it may seem like a complete life pivot to quote unquote stop working 9 to 5 and be employed by a person, like the heart-ledness of leading with my clear knowing feels absolutely like it's something that has just been there all along. And I just am tapping into it in kind of a different way.
yeah.
Um, I will say that there's one energy practitioner I went to regularly, kind of as I was going through the difficult transition of being unhappy at work. And I think if I had not gone to her, I would not have had all of the energy body healing to be able to open enough as this new path unfolded.
Hmm.
Um, I also had a quantum healing hypnosis, which is a different modality, but
Past
also
life
you.
regression.
hmm
Yeah.
Um, And I think that that was a catalyzing time that I want to say just like broke my heart open in like a very profound way. Um, yeah, so I kind of had I was like creating these micro moments in the background of life that was opening me more and opening me more and opening me more so that when I was ready, I could fully leap in. Um,
Yeah. It's really interesting because I've had clients who have, and I was going to ask you initially, like, were you spiritual or did you consider yourself to be like a spiritual person kind of like throughout your corporate life? And it sounds like you did. And then I have clients a lot of times who are like, I like see spirituality and I want to move more in that direction, but I just feel like I don't have access or I don't know how to get from
yeah.
here to there.
hmm
And like I want to hear your perspective on that. Like people who say like I'm not spiritual or they want to be more spiritual. What do you say to people like that? They're like, I just don't know how to access that kind of energy.
Yeah, well, how are you defining spirituality? And are you equating spirituality with religion or like what are you equating it to? And so the beauty of New Agey or woo or spirituality is you can define what that means for yourself, right? So how I define spirituality and my presence and openness with feeling like I'm in harmony with the universe might be very different than how you define your spirituality, right? And therein lies the fun. We could, have mocktails and talk about that for hours and connect. And how fun is that? So, the one thing that I have really noticed as well in being an Akashic reader is we have a lot of beliefs trapped, right? We get them from childhood, we get them from collective consciousness. And, this is the fun part we talk about. We get them from past lives, we get them through karmic ties, all of that unseenness. Um, and so there also can be some stuff in the undercurrent that is their fear around their spiritual path that they are feeling. And that could be coming very, very unconsciously from something else, right? There might be a belief or something to release before they can fully own and step into that spirituality. What has been your experience with clients? Does that resonate?
Oh yeah, I think a big focus is limiting beliefs or programming around
Mm-hmm.
even just doubt, I think, because we have a lot of religious programming, but the spiritual, energetic element, I even think like just on a level of like health, like this idea of spiritual health in comparison to emotional, mental, or physical, we don't really talk
Mm-hmm.
about it as much as like being in alignment with who you actually are, living a life
Mm-hmm.
for meaning and purpose. That's like creating a
Mm-hmm.
act and like connecting you to the people around you. And so I think like even just Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm
I was
gonna try to, I feel like I need to be looking in your eyes now.
so do I.
We're gonna try to go back to video.
Yes, that's so funny. I was thinking it over and over. I'm like, I really want her to turn
See?
the video on, so you knew. Um, so for me, like I try to really make it digestible for people. Like spirit is a part of our health, just as our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, and it has
Mm-hmm.
to do with our understanding of spirituality and what that means to us, but also
Yeah,
has
I love that.
meaning, purpose, and connection to ourselves. So it's kind of like, to me, it's like I always explain religion as, one facet beneath spirituality. If that's like a facet that resonates for you, but it's not like a mandatory element, and that a lot of people have, religious experiences that tainted them from spirituality,
Yep.
but then just existing in
Yep.
a society that doesn't place any emphasis on healthy spiritual connection, or it's just not really at the forefront of people's radar. So I think many people just kind of come into coaching like pretty disconnected from their intuition, pretty disconnected from what they actually think as a human, especially since many people I work with are
Yes.
eating with alcohol. So,
Right. And I think that for me, you just hit the nail on the head around that intuition piece, right? And I think that that's part of how I frame my own coaching is more around like, let's get you back to your inner wisdom, right? Because so many times clients come, and that's the piece that's missing, right? Like, why are they coming to coaching? Why are they seeking support? Sometimes it could be because they're already past that self-doubt point and they're like, I am a freaking amazing human. And of course, I'm going to resource myself as I transition into something new.
mm,
More often than not, though, it's that little bit of deficit-based thinking, inner criticness, right? That they need a sounding board, but they also first need the reassurance, right? To have somebody else be holding the hope that there are infinite, vast possibilities in their life, um, just like waiting for them,
yeah.
I guess, from one side of the gap to the other side of the gap, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think once you start to be open to your own inner wisdom, to your own intuition, I think you start to have a little more faith in your ability to connect to something beyond, something greater,
Yes.
your own purpose and meaning. And like
Yes.
that faith starts to build generally too, so do like practices that support it and spiritual
Hmm.
hygiene. I think a lot of people have a hard time getting consistent with like breath work, meditation, nature walks, and all of these things because it's like we're so used to immediate gratification too that we don't realize like spiritual development is a practice, and it's a trust, and it's a surrender, and it's a discipline. So it's an examination
Hmm.
and an exploration and a curiosity. And so there's so many pieces of like it that, go into like this unfolding. And I think it just kind of like blossoms at,
You are throwing down all of my favorite vocabulary around this, right? Because when I think of purpose, which you can ask in your Akashic records about your purposes, like it's not just one thing. Um, and that's one of the myths I would love to debunk. Like, there's not just one purpose. And like, can we stop it with the Venn diagrams of thinking about our purpose as our career and like, what's your zone of genius? Because you've done this for umpteen years and you have these like natural talents. Like, no. Um, like we need to unfold alongside and with our purpose in every day, right? We're living, breathing our purpose. It's not something that we all of a sudden find and then map ourselves to. At, at least my experience is you get these big, gorgeous glimmers of it, and you feel that almost body sense of truth
yeah.
when you are in resonance with it, and you just kind of get that feeling. And then every day move through aligned actions in resonance with that feeling, right?
Oh yeah.
Unfolding is like my favorite word right now, thinking
Yeah.
about.
Because I think so many people search externally and they're like, where am I going to find it? Like
Hmm.
it's this like destination. And it's
You're not going to find it externally.
yeah, and it's actually what I found is like, okay, don't even look for your meaning and purpose. Just focus on inner alignment and your
Yeah.
purpose finds you. And it just does. One guest on the podcast at one point was like, it's so cool how, you're in inner alignment and then the red carpet kind of rolls out in front of you. And it's so true. It's like
Hmm.
I was binge drinking, spending time with a bunch of people that I didn't really feel like had the best intentions for me. I hated my job, and I'm like, where is my purpose? Like, what am I going to do with my life? It's like, well,
Right.
you're doing nothing to foster the discovery of that. You're actually like throwing dirt
Right.
over your
Right. You're numbing your discovery. But
yeah.
that's what happens because, the number one thing is like people fear the unknown. Like we have gotten out of, I don't even know the word that I would use, but like if you can kind of like get enough of your inner wisdom activated, that fear of the unknown that maybe I first had when I, quit my job from burnout, like it's pretty high. And then as you start the red carpet unfolding with yourself and your inner wisdom, I'm good. Like,
Yeah, it's such
I'm
a
kind of like, let's unfold anything, right?
yeah, because you're like, I know that through surrendering to the process while being aligned internally,
Hmm.
everything is going to be fine and everything is happening for me. And we resist things we perceive as negative so much, but just like you said, so often we look back and think, oh my God, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen. And often if we just lean in instead of kind of fighting it energetically and sometimes
Hmm.
literally and physically, it's like it can be unfolding with so much more ease.
Yeah. Our systems do so well at keeping us safe, um, which is maybe a blessing and a curse
It
because,
is, but I feel programming reinforces it so much. I
mhm.
feel like our programming is really meant to keep us like in line and small sometimes too. And so I think even though we're wired in that way, like fight or
But
flight.
I don't know that we're wired in that way so much as we used to be wired in that way, and you absolutely can release it, right? So, um, just like any good therapist has a therapist, any Akashic record reader is going to have other Akashic record readers that you work with sometimes. And so, one of my most recent kind of big releases, through working with another reader was around kind of really primal fear. Like from the time we were all in caves, kind of just fear of dying, right? And we cleared that. Um, and so sometimes I think that um, that wiredness programming, like if you shift your belief, and this is maybe where my worldview has changed, being an Akashic record healer, is like we can really release and shift like anything, um, which is wild and wonderful,
Mhm.
even if it's like an attached fear that's like so primal that
Yeah.
it makes no rational sense, right?
It does seem like a lot of our society, it's like is operating from a space of fear. And not
Yep.
to sound like I I understand with like politics and all of these things, like they do impact our lives, but I also feel like at a certain point, I'm like, but where are we giving our power and how are we using it in ways that are effective when we're just like outraged constantly?
Yeah.
Like I understand the emotion behind it, but it's also, and I don't advocate for like burying your head in the sand or anything, but I'm like, if we revisited how our energy can show up in a way that's like constructive or actually one that's going to facilitate change that we want to see in any capacity, whatever that is. Um, I just find that I'd never circle back and think, this outrage culture is really serving us. I don't think.
No, it's not. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of fear right now. And in conversations I have had, like even with just neighbors, um, there's such, did you just hear a bird? Does that go back to our conversation from, how
Yeah.
did I know that? Oh, I love
And
it.
my husband and son are like walking around in the garden,
Oh,
so I can see
how
them at little
fun.
and I'm like, oh, there they are.
Yay. Send them a little heart. Um, yes, I think what's happening right now is very fear-based. And I think by staying in daily absorption of the like, holy crap, it sucks so much, that really has people feeding that fear energy. My belief is it's much healthier to disconnect from that.
Oh yeah.
Um, on a, keep your energy clean, keep your energy clear, um, you know, do good work with your own life, but also engage in that goodness when it feels like something you want to help. But yeah, and this is even something that a client was struggling with. So someone I was reading her Akashic records, and so she was really struggling with the internalization of like it feels horrible to be engaging right now, like in the world around me, in politics, absorbing all that, but I care so deeply. Um, and there were some things ancestrally that made that even harder for her, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was just, I mean, it's endlessly fascinating.
I read like Many Lives, Many Masters and also Journey of the Souls.
Hmm.
And he talks a lot about just past life regression and how just the simple awareness around like a traumatic event or the origination of a limiting belief or
Yep.
an old wound, it's actually just like healing itself because that understanding is like, okay, now I know where this came from and it's brought to the surface for awareness. It's like shadow integration. And just knowing like you understand yourself better and you can kind of see
Hmm.
this is my inclination because of this. So now
So
it's
I would take it a step further, right? And maybe now this is like getting into how the Akashic records
yeah, so look
work.
at it.
Yeah, so maybe let's say what they are. Take a step back, maybe with the newbie brain.
Yeah.
Um, so the Akashic records, they always get compared and talked about as the library of your soul, which is a very apt and beautiful metaphor. And so the information of everything you've ever done, past, present, and future, is stored in the Akashic field. Um, Including human lifetimes, including non-human lifetimes, if that's part of what your belief system is, right? It's everything. Um, People sometimes describe it as the information arm of source, which is also a beautiful phrase that I love. That's how my teacher describes it. And it's also energy, like it's a field of energy that that part of it I think gets missed sometimes when we talk about Akashic record readings, or there are some Akashic record readers and maybe all the reading is you get some information about your past life or whatever is up for you. But what you were saying before about that, kind of shadow work into awareness, my perspective would be that's not enough, right? So there is potentially some healing, maybe some vow dissolving, some cord dissolving that absolutely can be healed and released outside of time and space when you're working in your Akashic records, um, because that awareness might not be enough, right?
Yeah. It
Um,
makes sense even too for like behavior change. You know, so many people get stuck in the stage of awareness without being able to move past it. So it makes perfect sense that like an additional energetic healing or
mhm.
like you said, cord cutting, all that type of stuff is necessary to really heal and holistically, spiritually, holistically through being able to see the answers or the explanation, but then also like address it.
Right. And the whole reason to be doing this work is not for the curiosity's sake of like, was I a king in a past lifetime? No, it's because what we ask in the records, we want to be like invaluable and applicable to our real life here and now, right? It is the deepest work that I have ever done. And I've been in therapy and done other energy work, like the lightning speed at which I have been able to release like deep, deep beliefs and heal relationships, and all of it has been um, so fast and deep since I started working in the Akashic field, which is so fun. Um, yeah, I could talk about it till the cows come home, but really, and this is maybe what you were saying, about bringing it into awareness is when I do coaching, I use the Akashic records and coaching because you can change your beliefs and do all this releasing in the Akashic field, but then integrating that into your daily life is also
A
a
process.
piece,
Yeah.
a process, right? And so, that's important too, is, all of this is designed to help you in the here and now, right?
Yeah, I think that's so cool being able to do the Akashic record reading and then helping people along the path integrate. And it's so true too, because
Yeah.
I feel like even once we know things and we understand them, as life happens, we have different kind of experiences that butt up against those like
Mm-hmm.
new understandings of ourselves and opportunities to be like, okay, now how do I address this particular context
Right.
with this new understanding?
And some people integrate super fast in your worldview and you can change in months, but some people maybe not so quickly, right? And so that integration piece, um, it's like that self-doubt and intuition we were talking about. When your intuition goes up, then you're gonna trust more your inner wisdom. And, I want all my clients eventually to graduate and
Yeah.
not need me anymore, right?
Yeah, that they're checking in their own Akashic records. I need to,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, awesome. Oh, I'm so excited to get started. But tell me, is there anything else before we do that you feel like people should know about the Akashic record? You explained it as kind of a
Mhm.
library for your soul, your energetic blueprint, past, present, and future, helps you gain insights and understandings that you can then either energetically address or,
Mhm.
work in tandem with coaching or even just yourself to kind of learn new ways of being in the world, supportive
Yeah.
of the understandings and insights you gain.
I also would add, and this is, here's the new agey phrasing of it. Um, but the purity of vibration and the high frequency of the Akash is huge. Um, So when you're first starting out, sometimes that can be really tiring. Like you have to attune to it. One of the things that's very typical after a reading is sometimes clients can be tired for like the rest of the day or maybe even a day or two afterwards, because it is that like big deal of an energy frequency, um, which in and of itself can be healing, right? So even if you um, don't remember some of your reading or aren't sure how it works or are questioning it, in the background, like all of that energy that has been brought forth is staying with you. And 6 months down the road, you might not know that it was like a small opening that happened during your Akashic records. So it's pretty powerful stuff in that way. And maybe I'll just give a quick like how does this work, because I think
Yeah.
too clients are really interested in that, and you know how in marketing world, they're always like, wow, when you're on your Instagram and you're doing this, you talk about the results that the client, like we also need to be transparent about the how of what our spiritual tools are. I believe we owe that to our clients. And because the Akashic records are still not, you know, as table conversation as Reiki or yoga, like I think we need to kind of explain it because I think that what's happening sometimes with my clients is they're like, how are you doing that? Like, how is it working? And that brings them out of their heads. You don't want that during a reading. Does that make sense? You're like, yeah, okay. So we open the Akashic records with, you could call it like an access prayer. There are different access prayers from different teachers. They all work. It's really more about your intention. And then what happens is my consciousness moves into the Akashic field. So that's where I am. And because of the linkage between hearts, then everything I am saying during a reading is coming directly from your Akashic record keepers. That's the holders of that field, if you will. And that's who I'm talking to, channeling from during a reading. Um, Nothing is ever coincidental. So the words that I say during a reading are, I mean, I can't tell you how many strange phrases I say, and I have no idea why I'm saying them. I read for a client last week who had put on a healing retreat, and we were talking kind of about some of her energy and beliefs, and I started seeing it in this particular way, kind of like as yarn, like this ball of yarn. And I was like, I have no idea why I'm seeing it as a ball of yarn. That's what I'm being shown. And she's like, the whole weekend, I made the analogy with everybody that their beliefs were like a ball of twine. I was like, well, there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that happens all the time. And that's kind of the how it works. My consciousness is somewhere else, and it's a three-way conversation between the two of us and your record keepers. And a lot can happen somatically as well, right? Tingling, burping, all of the all of the feels, right?
How
Of
can I poop
typical
my pants over here?
typical energy work. No, you're not.
Okay.
What other questions do you have?
No, I think you did a great job of explaining it. And I think, I am familiar with doing some stuff like that. So I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of any questions people would have that would be completely new. But I think you hit all of the major
Yeah.
things. It's like you're accessing a
Yep.
field of information that you're consciously connecting to. And
Yep.
with me, the three-way communication makes sense.
Yes. And I can only do it with your explicit consent, right?
Yeah.
And I cannot access another person's records without their consent, right? So if you ask a question about, anyone in your family, we can ask all about that relationship and if you have any agreements as a soul and all of that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, just maybe this is for new people, they'll come in and they'll talk about nothing but one of their kids. And it's like, great, that's not, I can't answer what's going on in his soul because those records are not available to me. We can talk about you and your relationship. So that's another thing um, that's kind of common. And I only read the records of adults, right? People need to be 18-ish or just cognitively ready to receive some big info.
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Do this, honey. I can't
All
wait.
right.
I'm excited. Let me get my light a little closer to me.
Exciting. Okay. So I need your consent and I need your full legal name.
Okay. I give you my consent to access my Akashic,
Amazing.
and my full legal name is Catherine Elizabeth Campbell.
Beautiful. Um, okay. Let's ground for a second, get our minds out of podcast land. And if you can sit as tall and straight as possible.
I kind of feel like I was like already out of podcast land. I started feeling
Yep,
like a little
good.
lightheaded before when we were talking.
I'm not surprised. That totally is normal and can happen. Yeah, so just closing your eyes. However you want to breathe is just perfect. Breathing into your heart space. And so we'll just go ahead and you can also think about opening your crown chakra and just connecting with golden light. And we also want to make sure that we just ground into the earth. So we have chakras everywhere in our bodies. So just magically opening the chakras on the bottom of your feet and then just sending roots down into the earth. Whatever color they are, if they look like light, that's just perfect. And sending them down a few feet into the earth. And then also thinking about that golden light coming in through your crown chakra, moving down your back energy channel. And then thinking about moving that fully into the earth. So from the base of your tailbone, moving that into a grounding cord all the way down deep into the crystalline core of Gaia. And that's a great way for any excess energy that comes out and comes our way can dissipate through that grounding cord. And so, Katie, what I'll do is I will say an intention for clarity. And then there's an opening piece of the Akashic prayer. And then I will get silent for a couple of minutes, finishing the opening process, and I will let you know when your records are open. And so you can just keep breathing, especially around your heart center. Even taking some of that golden light and just thinking about it getting bigger and brighter with every breath you take. Beautiful. Lords, masters, and teachers, please help us to remove what no longer serves us, including all hidden beliefs, prejudices, outdated patterns, programs, blocks, and constrictions, as we access Akashic Record information for ourselves today with clarity. We are here to do the work of the divine. We are clear of other people's energy. Information moves freely to and through me. We are full of divine energy. Lords of the Akasha, please fill us with your divine love and assist us in being grounded and present in our bodies as we access divine information and wisdom from you today. Please expand our state of consciousness and move us into alignment with the Akashic realm in a heart-centered state. I ask that the shields of protection be activated to encircle us as we move deeply into the Akashic record of you. And now I'm going to get quiet for a couple of minutes. Okay, your records are open. How are you feeling? Good.
Yeah. Um,
So, with a reading, I always give clients kind of a little cheat sheet of potential questions, which I sent to you ahead of time and you looked through. And so I always like to just ask, what what questions do you want to ask? And we'll see how many we can get through.
I have, so I have five, but the main themes that I am kind of looking at is like greatest challenges and fears to release, in order to like get the best healing and clearing for myself right now, and what information I'm ready to receive at this point to best align with my soul's path. Um, and so those kind of like challenges and obstacles or whatever I need to release to best align with my soul's path is like the general question. And,
Hmm.
also curious about like what existing soul contracts in my life are like the most like prominent at this point, and if there's any insight as to like what I'm supposed to be working through with those people.
Yeah. Have you asked about, because you're married, right? Have you asked about the contract with him?
No.
Okay, that's kind of what they're telling me first. What's his first name?
John.
John. And I guess this is me, Sarah, talking now. I'll preface this because this is like going to be a publicly consumed reading. That prior to starting this, just to make sure that it was in like the highest and best integrity for you, when I was in my records to prepare, um, your record keepers will kind of tell me if there's anything like just private for you, right? And then we cut that out afterward, or we'll see how it go. Just because sometimes an Akashic reading is very much it's like as intimate as therapy, you could say.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I want to ask you, kind of poking at that first question, which is really around you said challenges and fear for your soul purpose. So, um, talk to me about what your relationship with fear is like right now.
I I don't know if fear is like the best term. I guess like whatever challenges, if fear maybe is one of them, I don't feel like particularly fearful around the
Right.
like trajectory of my career, my soul's path. I feel like I'm in a really good, um, I feel like
Flow.
I am in a good flow, but I'm just looking like that next level of like any habits or patterns or thinking or just any general challenges that are obstructing like the flow I'm already in more so because I really don't feel like fearful. I feel really trusting.
Okay.
That word might be like the wrong use, but just more
And
like
that's okay. As I said, nothing is coincidental. You know, what I am, and I think that it feels right, Katie, if you don't mind, for me to kind of name just for the sake of where we are, kind of what's going on in the background and why I'm asking, right? So you're asking about challenges and fears and blocks for a reason, right? This is me, Sarah. There's probably something there, right? Or else you wouldn't be asking about it. And so often in the beginning of a reading, the record keepers are talking to me, and I'm talking to a client just to get all the context, right? To see like what's the best direction and what's really the question that we want to ask that's going to get you to the highest and best like place and healing. So the other thing I want to ask is around what do you know about your soul's path? Like, what do you feel is true in your heart, known about your soul path? Or do you ever feel like there's more hidden, is how they're saying to phrase it.
I feel like I am like absolutely on the right path. I feel like I'm not sure like exactly how the unfolding of it's happening, but I do feel like I'm meant for big things, like big impact. Um, and I guess like my fear is that like that doesn't happen or that
Okay.
like my business or my dreams don't amount to like what I believe that they will. But, and I think another fear is like always making sure I'm actually like my most authentic self just with the life I'm building and my presentation. Like, I'm always really wanting to be like a representation. Like, everything I'm doing with work is like a representation of me as a human. And so just really being in alignment with that all. Um, So yeah, I think some of the fears, like there's definitely been like need for validation along the way or feeling
Yes.
need to prove myself in some capacity.
Well, yes. I'm glad you said that because what they're starting to tell me in the background is it's not so much what we would consider like a classic fear of like, oh crap, I can't do this. It's more of a fear of success. It's more of a fear of um bigness. It's more of a fear of like, and they're saying you have felt it before, like with the momentum that you have been getting lately, they're saying that the globalness by which you could take your message feels too big right now. And so, partly what happens when we're on a path and we think about soul purpose is the bigness of it. And what they're saying, they keep saying global, right? So, the bigness of potentially having such huge impact at scale, um, they're saying like your energy isn't fully ready to step into that because that's too scary bananas. Does that resonate?
But is it supposed to step into that?
Well, there is no supposed to. It's always going to be your choice. What do you want to step into? Do you want to step into it fully or not? And how beautiful that your system is telling you all of these things already. And so the other thing that they're saying is that you are so stepped into your authenticity already. However, there's this piece of pattern around almost like the authentic, there's like a flip side of the authenticity. Like you're so authentic, but you've almost taken it to such a raw state of authenticity that there's now a little bit of pressure coming into it around being perfectly authentic in every moment,
Hmm.
right? Like they're calling it like a authenticity pressure
Hmm.
almost. Does
Yeah.
that resonate? Say more about that.
Yeah, I think that does resonate. And part of like what I think it has to do with like a niche and being like adhere, like sharing. I think sometimes I just like want to share about like playful random shit, but because like my whole thing is like deep feeling and sobriety and sober curiosity, I'm always afraid of like breaking out of that, I think. And I have like elements of
Yep.
conflict with that.
That's yes. That's actually what it is in this life, they're saying. Um, Businesses are meant to be fun, funsies, playful, talk about the random shit because that is the truth of who we are. Even if we're choosing to niche in our business, um, the world is maybe seeing 40% of that niche, right? But the truth of who you are as this vibrant, sober, amazing human is will not shift, right? And so, um, in business like we can niche ourselves out of expansion, right?
Mhm.
And so there's some self permission here, and I'm gonna maybe write that down as a point for us to explore later, or some kind of prayers or invocations that you can do around that self permission to step into that work after this reading um, is the um, it's what we were talking about before, Katie. They're saying, like, you know, how we were talking about the fear of the unknown, right? The niche you're in is so amazing and you've had so much success in it. Anything else is stepping into a fear of the unknown for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what it is because I feel like initially I had so many people doubting me when I was like talking about sober curiosity and like a
Okay.
holistic approach to sober curiosity, and this like whole realm was like so many people in my life were like, I mean, there's like friendships I don't have anymore from getting sober, which is like par for the course. But there was just a lot of like people in my reality initially that really
Okay.
doubted me. And so I feel like because I built like my success is really on this like idea that was fringy, that's now mainstream, and it's really getting a lot of like traction, that there is a part of me that's like, oh, can't like leave this. But I also have so many facets of myself that I want to share. And so yeah, I think that is definitely a part of it.
So your record keepers are saying the piece that we need to trace now. Um, I'd love to respond to what you just said as me, Sarah, and talk about that maybe after your records are closed. But there's a betrayal piece somewhere in your past and your friend and your past lives. So when you were talking around friendships and losing friendships, there's something there around that piece. Um, and that's where the fear is coming from. Um,
I think I faced like a lot of fear of judgment from like a particular group of friends when I like stepped out of my kind of like party girl persona, and it was
mhm,
very like hard for me to feel like I was becoming a better version of myself, yet I was being
mhm,
judged for it. And I felt like there,
mhm.
and then there was like previous betrayals um in other relationships like before that. And so I think I just went through a very vulnerable time of like having a betrayal in my partnership and then betrayals with my friendships.
Yeah. It's more than that. Sorry to interrupt you, but they're getting a little bit like push energy,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. And so what that usually means is like, here comes the shit you need to hear, which is this betrayal from friends and from families. That's a much bigger pattern, right? Didn't start in this life. And so what I'm going to do, Katie, is I'm going to start to ask your record keepers to take us back to the root. Right. Show us, please, record keepers, when the first time was that, and it's got to be that betrayal piece. So show us the first time that Katie was betrayed. And I'm just going to take a minute to tune in and see what comes from that. I'm getting stuff fast, so I'm just going to take a minute and write it all. Okay, there it is. So what they're showing me and telling me is there was a deep friend betrayal at some point, and it really had to do with um, a time when you were keeping secret, naming what was going against the norm, right? So think about it in terms of, I want to say that like Calvinist Luther back in England, religious conflict, when the prevailing thought was you can have no relationship with God or spirit. And then the winds of change happened, and you were one of the preeminent out there winds of changer person saying you absolutely can have a personal relationship with God, with the one.
Aside
And
of
that's outside of religion, outside of church. So you were um, gathering people together in that almost like a very secret. I'm going to be a leader and we're going to have a discussion about how you can have a relationship with one and have
oh,
a relationship with spirit, right? Um, and very trusted, very like underground communication channels. Hey, come, for lack of a better word, come to the yurt in secret, like at 7 o'clock on Saturday, and we're gonna have this communing, right? And so there's definitely this also thread of like you being the one to pull community to you, right? And you obviously told like one of your best friends that you were doing this and this you're both male lives in this lifetime uh betrayed you to the chasers of that um religious whatevering at that time, like came and bashed down the door, right? So there's go ahead.
I just feel like that makes so much sense because I always feel like I'm kind of on like the fringe of mainstream or like reminding people like you don't have to do this just because that's what everyone's doing. And
Right.
I feel like that feeling of like I always talk with other people, like even a small example is like I didn't get the COVID vaccine and I felt
Hmm.
very alienated in many ways because of that. But then I would talk to other people that didn't get it and they're like, it's fine, it's just my personal choice. I didn't get it, it doesn't bother me. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
like I can
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
I feel like when people villainize me for choices that I feel like were justified in my case, or I'm doing something different than other people and they're judging me for it. And even
Right.
with business being like,
And you are feeling the need to justify and justify and over justify and over justify because there is this literal fear of betrayal from someone in your community,
I need you to
right?
understand me. Like I'm always like feeling like, and it's so crazy with my partner. I'm always like, I just want to feel like you hear what I'm saying, like, and then we can move on. Like then I don't, as long as I
Yep.
feel heard or understood, which I think is like a common theme, but I definitely feel it
Yep.
on a visceral level sometimes.
Yeah, it's so visceral and it's so sharp and biting, and we don't need to relive our past trauma when we are in the Akashic records, but just so you have kind of like the experience of like when that door opened in that lifetime, and it's quite emotional. It's like the breath you took at that moment of knowing who it was like, you know, um, mm, okay. So now we get into the clearing phase of how this is going to work. And when something so big bananas crazy trauma, for lack of a better word, happens in our past lives, like from this linear time, um, we also can make promises to ourselves and vows to ourselves that no longer serve us, right? So there's also so within this fear is also wrapped up like a um, I'm never going to trust anybody fully again. I'm never going to trust anybody fully again. I'm never going to trust my community fully again. And so, if you think about what you were saying before in this context, what they're saying is that expanding into something new and different, even if it feels amazing to your heart, you have such a beautiful community that follows you for this, right? And so uh, it's that lack of trust, like are they not going to follow me? is this community that I have put my heart and soul into building? Like, are they going to betray me too? Right. So the first thing, you okay? Take some deep breaths and just breathe into it. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do to clear this, and this is the great news in the Akashic record, is we're going to do a very quick vow release. And this is coming from some prayers, you could call them, that are channeled directly from the Akashic records. I can give you this book link for people later, and it's just a quick vow release. It's a paragraph. I'll say the phrase, and you just repeat it. And we're going to do this twice. Okay, you ready? Take some deep breaths too. Yeah, good. Mother, Father, Goddess, God,
Their Father, Goddess, God,
please release the ties that bind me
please release the ties that bind me
to vows from the past.
to vows from the past.
I move my energy outside of time and space
I move my energy outside of time and space
to reclaim and gather my soul energy.
to reclaim and gather my soul energy.
I return the energy of another
I return the energy of another
that I have held on to.
that I have held on to.
Our vow is complete.
Our vow is complete.
All right, one more time, breathing into your heart space and also thinking about it consciously as you are releasing the vow, right, that you made to yourself to not trust another. Mother, Father, Goddess, God,
Mother, Father, Goddess, God,
please release the ties that bind me
please release the ties that bind me
to vows from the past.
to vows from the past.
I move my energy outside of time and space
I move my energy outside of time and space
to reclaim and gather my soul energy.
to reclaim and gather my soul's energy.
I return the energy of another
I return the energy of another
that I have held on to.
that I have held on to.
Our vow is complete.
Our vow is complete.
So it is.
So then,
Blessed be. So your record keepers want to change fully that moment in time so that we can release and clear this fully. And so oftentimes they'll give me a visual. And so go ahead and close your eyes. Um, and you can think about being in community with your gifts, talking to people about source, talking to people about oneness. And instead of what happened and what caused this heartache for you, I want you to think about flooding that space with gold and light. I want you to think about it just flooding with gold, flooding with angelic presence, and really feeling that complete and total presence of oneness. And I want you to think about, they're saying a back door. And this is they're calling it a back door of protection, right? That's always there in your life, right? That you can move etherically and beautifully into or out of, no matter what situation you're in. But thinking about that moment of betrayal, go ahead and change that moment by thinking about it as a moment of mm, as a moment of jubilation and a moment of community. And by that, I mean the betrayal doesn't happen. You get a divine warning of it, and you and your entire congregation and entire community, as you are flooded and filled with golden light, you lead the entire community out the back door and into a different space. So go ahead and finish however that visual is appearing to yourself and just let me know when that's done.
okay.
Okay, how are you feeling?
Good. It makes a lot of sense because I feel like in a lot of, even just like growing up, I always was well liked and like popular, but I always felt like I didn't
Hmm.
quite like fit in though in a lot of ways and was like different. And there were lots of like just I don't know, even like normal behaviors where I would be like, I don't really like this isn't really my vibe. Like I don't
Yep.
type of thing. Like I've always felt that way. And then um but not I do feel like I have like leader energy and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like supposed to be doing that. And so I feel like it's coming from a like I don't know how to explain.
Because when you were pulling the right community to you, like when you were in,
Like I think I was in the wrong communities and I was just like unable to like assimilate or conform. And then I kind of felt like people could feel that within me and they like resented,
yes.
like
Yes.
especially in old groups of friends where I kind of felt like I subconsciously knew that I didn't resonate, but like, and they subconsciously knew. So they kind of like were
Right.
triggered
Your
by me.
your
Like when I,
energies and your unconscious, they're always going to be talking.
yeah.
Um, but the beauty of you, and they're really saying this is part of like your gift in the world, right? Is the drawing of the right community to you in whatever is resonance for like what you want to put out jubilantly into the world. Um, and that can change over time and is normal for that to change and evolve over time because you as a human are changing and evolving as a light worker like you are doing your thing and healing yourself and like and then are stepping out as a leader, right? And so um there's always going to be a new expansive community that you can draw in, right? This is kind of tying it full circle to what you were saying before around playfully random shit and putting it out there in your business. Um, it's it's really that what that next community is that's going to resonate with whatever that playful random shit is that you're putting out. And
And I think
so,
we can honestly be the same community. Like I don't even think like necessarily like
yes,
sharing more about my garden or whatever, you know, stuff like that, or cooking or this or that. It's like just
right.
being my more multifaceted self. Um,
Yep.
and then I also I guess like one thing to because we
Hmm.
is I'm like, oh my God, I could talk to you forever. Is like you had mentioned like not being energetically ready for global whatever. And I'm wondering like what shall I and I don't even know if that's like my end goal, but what is like the next what would help me be energetically ready?
Great.
Energetically ready to hold space for like my bigness. That was the word.
Mm. The theme that they're really still talking about is this trust piece, right? The trust that you have in yourself is like really vibrant and really strong already, almost like a silver cord is already there from like source to the earth and you can like pluck it and it's like this beautiful violin sound of complete resonance. But it really is about that trusting in your community and that the people that are there for you are there and they're going to stay with you. And some of them might leave and some of them might come and go. Like they're really kind of staying on this whole theme that we just healed is that there's a like a deeper trustingness of your community that's going to come from that um they're almost also saying like letting go of control of it, right? Like you don't need to tell me if this resonates. You don't need to wrap your energy entirely around your community. That's gonna deplete you, right? And you're going to be tired from that, right? So they're just making this distinction. Like, what does a leader do is what they're kind of saying. Like one type of leader, and this is when they're maybe not totally in trust and when they're trying to control a little bit, wraps their arms around everything because it feels so good and amazing at the start, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you keep wrapping your arms around it. But they're saying no, like let go of the wrapping your arms around it vibe. Um, and that will give you more energy to expand.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Kind of that analogy they're making. Um,
makes sense. I actually have felt like at times where I've been doing the least and like letting things unfold the most
mhm.
is when like things have kind of grown.
Yeah.
But I
I'm
have
all,
felt like a little fear at times about like momentum building where I'm like, whoa, okay, like do I want to be like totally like publicly known like or I sometimes I have like a little fear of like losing my anonymity.
anonymity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like even in my small town, I'm like, ooh. But I have had this larger thought of like something is coming, so just appreciate this quiet. Like,
absolutely. And see if that fear goes down after what we've cleared today, right? Because if you're not fearing a betrayal of your community, that you might not fear the anonymity anymore, right? Like that's the other thing when you after you get a reading, like um, don't assume that what was true, like is still true. Like you don't know how what we did is going to trickle through
oh,
and
true.
have your beliefs feel differently. But I know that we have kind of like a stopping point. So I actually want to make sure we close your records. And then I'm going to send you another channeled from the Akashic prayer to use, which your record keeper said, which is around standing in trust with another person. Um, and so think about that, and maybe we can email on the side too, because we didn't get to ask about your what your soul's kind of purpose was, and they were talking about your husband. And so thinking outside of this, like what your relationship with trust is with him, is something that they want you to think about and use this like standing in trust with a person prayer as well. But let's close your records, and then we can take a couple
Okay,
minutes
I'm
to
like, I
chat.
gotta make another appointment for
I
sure.
know. Absolutely. Beloved beings of light of the Akashic Record, please fill us up with the highest and best Akashic Record information and the highest and best physical level energy and information we can now hold. Thank you for your healing today. Thank you, dear lords, masters, and teachers of the Akashic Record, for the unconditional love, the wisdom, the information, and the healing we have received today. Please help us to return fully into our complete human wholeness in all dimensions, times, and planes. Please help us to integrate the information and healing received with ease and grace. I ask that you close and lock the records of Catherine Elizabeth Campbell, and so it is. Blessed be. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Yay. How do you feel?
That was so cool. And I definitely feel like it was wild how quickly you like zeroed in because I think like that betrayal theme, like I've had some
Mm-hmm.
betrayals through like just like growing up, relationships,
Yep.
like there's been several throughout my life that have been like pretty impactful, but I do feel like there's something like deeper there. And so as to,
Mm-hmm.
like why they impact me so deeply and um, I'm always just like, I'm really sensitive. That's probably why.
Yeah, I think it's because there's been this like karmic betrayal pattern running in the background,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what's beautiful about an Akashic reading is your record keepers, they just tell me like n nothing you say is coincidental, and they're like betrayal, betrayal, betrayal. And I'm like, okay, that's to me, that's the thread line that gets
Yeah.
followed when that becomes so clear. So thank you for letting me do this and being vulnerable in front of the world.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I'm used to that. I'm like, I've cried on the podcast a time or two.
Absolutely. And what's beautiful to me, like, given what we just read, is that you have chosen that path of authenticity. I'm going to get emotional. Even though you had all of this running in the background, like think about how much courage that flippin' took you in your whole life. Like that's tremendous. I only am getting to know you and we'll be flower friend neighbors forever in neighboring states, but like I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Will you please share with everyone where they can find you?
Yes, yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Boxless Coaching, and I post little videos and authentically show up into the world and try to give people some channeled invocations and wisdom, talk about the themes I'm seeing with my clients. And then online, my services can be found. It's boxless.cohere, which is COHERE.live, is where all my services are. And I can send you all those links, Katie, so we can put that in for people.
It in, definitely. That was so beautiful. I think it's very obvious that you're the real deal, just like so
Yeah,
cool. And I could see how I would love to definitely do another session with you and just like,
great. We'll do it.
yeah, and thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for
Thank you,
tuning in.
thank you, thank you. Rest.